So, hello guys. We are here with our friends from Blue Bananas, and we are team overtime. And I'm pretty sure that now our friends will share just brilliant information and share their experience in FTC. So, guys, let's start.
Thank you. All right. We are team 24180, the Blue Bananas from Alabama in the US. We have been in first for 6 years. We did FLL for 3 years, and this is our third season in FTC that we're currently competing in. We're going to be giving a competition on building a well-rounded FTC team, award strategy, and competition preparation. First up is building a well-rounded FTC team. So this is a complicated topic, so we're going to break it down into individual steps. So our first step that we recommend is defining who you are. The first part of that is setting up a team structure that suits your needs. This might take some time to work out because it's going to be different for different teams. We personally have our own structure that we like that we'll get into a little bit later, but it can vary depending on whether you're a school team or a community team and different circumstances for different people and what is most efficient for your team. The second thing is we recommend working out your budget and your fundraising because it's important to keep in mind that pretty much everything is going to cost money. It's not just the robot, but also your travel costs and any kind of outreach materials you're going to need. And it's important to keep all that budget in mind so you make sure you don't go over and you can properly fundraise. You also need to decide how competitive you want your team to be. Being more competitive as a team requires more dedication from the members, more effort and time put in, and sometimes the members can't all do that. So you need to decide how much all of your members can put in to the team and how much you guys want to be competitive versus how much you're just there for the learning and the fun, right? Not every single team can put in 20 hours a week to be like one of the top world's winning teams. Sometimes it's just really about the experience. So you need to decide what's best for your team. As for age ranges that work best for members, our personal team, we keep a pretty small age range from 13 to 15. Part of this is because, sometimes if you have a big age gap between one member and all of your other members, there might be some disconnect, it might be difficult to communicate with them. You can decide from the recruiting or whatever circumstances you have what kind of range works for who you're recruiting. Now we get to go to some of the more fun stuff. Actually, there's a single point before that is how many team members can your team manage? We recommend 8 to 10 is what we personally like, but different circumstances can require more members for more work. The fun stuff is your team identity. So your name, a lot of your colors, your branding, everything along there. So your logo, your theme, also any kind of customized fonts or templates you want to use, everything you're going to be using for resources to present your teams to others, not just other FTC teams, but also to professionals and to the community at outreach events, right? You want to have something unified that people can recognize your team by. And then the final, maybe one of the most important parts of this whole process is setting goals, which we're going to get into on the next slide. So goal setting. The goals you want to set are mainly in two categories, which is team goals and personal goals. Team goals can be within hardware, software, sustainability, outreach, pretty much anything across the board. They can be either game specific or just general. If they're general, we recommend you try and set them before you get into the season just to save some time. And you would likely like to set some across the board so you can try and be a well-rounded team and strive to succeed in multiple areas, right? And develop a variety of skills. We have some of our personal team goals listed here. It's like for hardware, clean wire management, more easily having repaired designs, cleaner designs. For software, some of our goals for like control with Pedro pathing and visual implementation. For non-technical, more in-depth outreach and mentoring and starting three teams. So you can try and set your own that go across the board and encourage your team to develop their skills. You also want personal goals for members so that members can have something that they can strive for and skills they can try and learn throughout the season. Part of this is also how those goals can be achieved and like working towards those in the season so that by the end of the season, they can say that they've accomplished the skills that they can. You can plan training sessions and connect with outside experts to try and develop those goals as well. Another important part of building a team is the first core values. So discovery, innovation, impact, teamwork, inclusion, and fun. Something our team liked to do when we were in our FLL years is do these Spark activity games to try and develop some team bonds and develop these core values so we could get closer as a team and develop some friendships, these are pretty fun to do if you don't know a lot of people on your team or you're having some trouble getting along. Some good team building activities can help with that, right? Also, in addition to your core values, there's also gracious professionalism and cooperation, describing kind of how you should act at competitions and otherwise. Gracious professionalism is a full kind of ethos and embodiment and lifestyle that your members should exude, partially because not only when you're at outreach events, you are representing your team and yourself. So you want to set a good image to others that your team is, kind and professional, and you guys are having a real impact on the world. Cooperation is about competing kindly and being competitive, but still helping the other teams and being a good sport at competitions, essentially. Now for communication, everybody has to agree and commit to a communication medium. So different resources, some common ones are Discord or Slack. GitHub is used often, Microsoft Teams sometimes. This is going to be important because you're going to have a lot of detailed communication outside of meetings. If you're just doing work in meetings, it's very difficult to get a ton of things done. There's going to have to be communication, coordination outside of that. Also for scheduling, which is why we also recommend having a team calendar. Part of this is so you can also have, for example, we have team obligations for members that we can get easier scheduling if we need to put in an extra meeting near a competition, for example, to try and get some work done. Team building activities is also under here. So like improving the communication within your team. So the trust and relationship building, we mentioned the Spark activities earlier, and also learning about the individual styles of communication of your members so you can more effectively communicate with them. And it's a fun activity. You can put this also as an example of fun and that core value in your engineering portfolio if you have some space, something the judges like to see. Also, some decision-making framework is important because there's going to be disagreements in your team throughout the season. You need some way to deal with them. It's also a thing judges like to talk about or ask about is how you overcame different obstacles, right? So you want to have some method for dealing with disagreements and working through them to reach a conclusive answer that the team can respect and agree with. And also the why of how you reach that decision, the how. So the process is important, not just the final conclusion for judging. The roles and responsibilities of individual members are also very important because this kind of also ties into the personal goals. If you give team members roles and responsibilities that are relating to their goals, they can more easily try and develop those skills. There's also different skills that different people have and are better at, right? So you can try and recruit for people who have certain skills that nobody on your team has or really wants to develop, right? But are still crucial skills. For example, if your team has no people who are interested in doing social media and outreach, you may want to try and recruit some members for that because, it's still a critical aspect. But if nobody's interested in it, you're going to need somebody to do that task. And it's better if you have somebody who's passionate about it. You also need to be ready to talk about the team. So for example, having maybe not fully written out or memorized, but having some basic information about your team on the top of your head is almost an elevator pitch to give to people when they ask is important. For example, if you're talking to professionals at some outreach event, it's good to just have a primer for your team to introduce yourself. And to prospective members you meet at community events, for example, or when you're talking to parents who are interested in how they can get their kid to join your team or on a team themselves, right? Like I mentioned, the next point is, taking over an activity can help develop skills on that. So maybe putting people in charge of leadership, even if they aren't the most experienced on that skill, but even if they're just really passionate about learning that can be enough, right? Because as long as you put them in that position where they can learn and develop those skills, if they're passionate about it, they will develop those skills. They'll become a good leader. You also should document the entire process, of course. Documentation is super important for judging and for engineering portfolio. The more documentation you have, the easier it's going to be to show to the judges your journey. We have one of our documentation binders here that is pretty thick and goes through a lot of our outreach here. This is not just about what you did. Again, it's also about the process, the lessons learned, the why behind it. So you can understand how certain decisions were made and the reasoning. And when you need to come back to a certain discussion later, you can have more information for why you made the choices you made and perhaps made like a better pivot to a better choice. Training is also a very important aspect of your team. So obviously, especially your first year, but also for next year's as you're recruiting more members, people are going to have different skill gaps, and it's going to be difficult to contribute more if you don't know what you're doing. So having training that's dedicated onboarding sequences for your members is very useful to have. So for example, resources for how to get set up with all of the team resources that you're using, your communication platforms, your calendar, all of that, having like easy guides so you don't have to spend time at meetings going through all of that. Best practices and rules you have for your team, consider like a rule book for your team or like a team guidebook that so that your members know what is expected of them, like the commitment levels, a lot of that stuff. Safety is also very important because some people might be working with like power tools for the first time or really getting into machining for the first time, may not know a lot of this stuff. So you have to build this guide from the ground up for people who like assuming they've never really been involved in STEM in their life before. And you have to be able to help them get up to that level to where they can contribute and be a real member of the team. You can also recruit professionals to help mentor your team. This is super crucial. Having dedicated mentors who can give you information on certain topics like software or hardware, help you make more informed decisions, extremely, extremely useful, right? Industry experience is something that can come in super handy when you're, when you're running and managing a team. It's almost like a small company, especially for larger teams. So having actual advice from people in the field who have dealt with working on teams before and working on like professional projects can help a lot in your own team. We also have some resources here. So Game Manual Zero is a good resource that has across the board a lot of stuff on hardware and different mechanisms. There's software stuff in there. There's also links to things like CAD libraries and portfolio libraries that you can check out like some examples for things that you're developing for your competitions. Control FTC is a good software guide. Particularly, they have some very good stuff on like some advanced concepts like PIDs, controls, and some of that stuff. Now, some other resources for inspiration. So you want to start your training early. There's a lot that can be done in the off season, even before you know any kind of game, right? So this is particularly for team training also. Like you can teach basic skills to a lot of your new members before the season starts. And because that's going to take time, you really don't want to start right after kickoff because it's going to eat up a lot of your like important strategy and development time before your competition. It's best to get that out of the way before the season starts if you can. You can do prototypes for different types of mechanisms that are common across different years, just to learn how like some of the works. Off-season prototyping is a useful thing to document also and put in your portfolio to show like development even outside of the season. Judges like to see that. Organizing a lot of your parts can be crucial because you can save a lot of time during build season if you're well organized. So making those procedures and working a lot of that out off season can help you out a lot during the season. Some more actual resources where you can get inspiration in both off season and on season are the unofficial First Tech Challenge server on Discord. This is a great resource because there are thousands of people who are online all the time and can help you with any sort of issue you might be having. You know, you can get a lot of feedback on different things you're working on. It's great to, have like almost like a forum that you can help on. Chief Delphi is more primarily FRC, but also has FTC, and that works as a forum where you can communicate. Reddit works for that. Instagram and YouTube have all kinds of videos. For example, the Fun Robotics channel has like behind the bots where they go in depth on other teams' robots from previous years. You can learn a lot of great mechanisms and design principles from that. Or they have videos on going into some of the strategy after the game starts and on to like what's best to prototype, for example. You can get a lot of great information both at the beginning of your season and off season and learn skills from YouTube tutorials. First Community blog has some insights and information about the FTC program. This is going to be coming from First officials. It's going to have some more official updates. There's also a lot in there about game updates and about like rules Q&A. These are resources that some teams don't keep up with. it is important to keep up with rules updates and the Q&A so you can actually know whether or not you're doing something is like outlawed randomly. You know, you want to make sure your strategy is actually a legal and viable game strategy, or if you need to pivot or not. But the whole goal of this is kind of just to like in the off season build a strong foundation for your FTC team and get ready to, you know, set yourself up for success during the actual season. So working out a lot of as many of the issues as you can beforehand and developing skills as much so that you're prepared when kickoff comes around.
So next we're going to get into award strategy. So this is like how to get what you need to win these awards. So FTC has multiple types of awards, and the main type, aside from the competition awards, which are about like how well your robot competes, are judged awards. So FTC will celebrate the excitement of competition both on the field with how your robot's constructed and everything, and off the field with how you deal with your outreach, how you recruit members, and how you manage your team. So judges are trained volunteers that will meet with teams, and they will determine which teams will receive which awards. So some good sources of information that are considered for these awards by the judges are your engineering portfolio, which you hand in during your structured interview and you prepare ahead of the competition. Your presentation during your structured interview, where you will talk about your team, your outreach, your software, your hardware, basically a whole overview of your team. And then pit interviews, where judges will come to your area during the competition and they'll ask you specific, more targeted questions about things that they want to know. So the format of the structured interview is it's an oral presentation that is given to a small panel, usually 2 to 3 judges. And what'll happen is the team will arrive first, and then they'll get situated and comfortable, and then they'll give their presentation, which can be a maximum of 5 minutes. 5 minutes is the hard cutoff where the judge will stop you. And then the judges will ask questions about things that they want to learn more about, and you'll answer. And then the team will leave and the judges will confer together, and they'll think about what is good, what is this, and what do they want to learn more about. And then the next team will arrive, and then this whole process will repeat itself. So one adult silent observer is welcome, and they can like jot down notes about what you've done during this interview, but you can't audio or video record during this interview. And then pit interviews, as I've said earlier, are when judges will come to your pit to ask more targeted additional questions. So some really good things that we highly recommend you look into are the competition manual section 6, which goes into depth about every award and some of the recommended and required things that you need for each award, and the judge manual, which you'll gain more insight into the complete judging process. Also, you want to know your material really well. As we've said earlier, documentation helps a lot. Also, practice your presentation with mentors, with field experts. Our mentor has us practice in the mirror every day. And then prepare for possible questions that judges could ask. We recommend using the judging questions bank. It has a lot of potential questions that judges will ask. So these are the overall awards categories. You have the Inspire Award, which is your overall champion, and you have to be a strong contender in everything. Then you have the Think Award, which is your engineering portfolio. And then the Team Attribute Awards, Connect, Reach, and Sustain, which are about how you manage your team, your outreach, how you sustain your team. And then the MCI Awards, Machine, Creativity, and Innovation, which you have the Innovate, Control, and Design, which will go over like how innovative was your design, how good was like your software, all that good stuff. Then Robot Competition, which is how well you compete in the matches. So your MCI awards. So our main tips are think outside the box. If every team is doing something, you don't have to do that. We recommend try something that's a bit unique. And it doesn't have to be some new revolutionary, never before seen thing. It can be something that like is good for you, but most teams don't do it. Also, we recommend putting practicality and reliability above aesthetics, because as the saying goes, if you can't walk, why are you trying to run? So if you can't do anything, why are you trying? If you can't create a part, why are you trying to create that part and make it innovative? So put what works well for your team. And documentation, as we've said countless times, is really good. and anything works. Let's say it's something really common like color sensor, but your team has never ever used a color sensor before. That's innovation. That's something you could put in your engineering portfolio. So these are your team attribute awards, your non-technical. You have your control award, your reach award, and your sustain. So our tips are, again, documentation, and actively seek out community and professional events where you can promote your team and first to the community and professionals. These could be events that are hosted by local colleges or schools, or you can send out cold emails to companies, and these cold emails would go something like, hey, we're team blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah. We would like to give a presentation about us and our robot and get some feedback. Would you be willing to do this at so-and-so time? So the Inspire and Think Award. So the Inspire Award is given to a role model first team, and you must be a strong contender in every award category. So our main tip is represent the first core values, because this is an especially important part that the judges will always be looking at. And also reach out to other first teams to both learn from them and collaborate, and also teach them through mentoring or assisting. Then you have the Think Award, which is based on your whole engineering portfolio. So documentation will be your best friend. Having something like this that you can show to judges during pit interviews is something that we've seen a lot of teams have good success with. Also, talk about your engineering design process and the engineering and evolution of your robot and team. You want to tell the whole journey of how you've done it and why you've done it, not just what you've done. So below in this image, you can see the engineering design process.
Here we have competition preparation as the next schedule, or as the next section. So this really starts in the off season. As we mentioned before, you're defining your general team goals and balancing them across the different areas for development of different types of skills, your personal goals and how to achieve those and work towards those. If you have any kind of like project manager or scheduling or like responsibilities like that fall under a team member, part of that should be tracking and checking in with members to see how their goals are going and to try and see if you can help them progress towards those goals, right? You want to be an enabler for their learning journey. Once you get around to kickoff, it's obviously going to be very hectic, but there's a couple things you need to do off the bat. There's obviously the game analysis, the strategy, and the robot design. So immediately, like the first week or two is going to be looking through the entire rulebook. Please read the entire rulebook. That's a critical thing that a lot of teams miss or disregard, but it's very important to know all the rules well. You want to look at different types of gameplay strategies, what you think is going to be the most effective points wise, and what you want to try and build your robot to do, what kind of capabilities you want to have. Part of this is, for example, our team and some other teams in our area do robot musts. After you've gone through the strategy, you and your team decide on what hard requirements you want to have for your robot, what you want to have by the end of the season or by your first competition or something like that for your design, right? So that people who are doing CAD have some restrictions and some certain requirements they have to fulfill. So there's some more guidance there. Some great resources you can use for this is you can use the unofficial FTC Discord. A lot of teams are doing prototyping in the first couple of days. You can look at what results they're getting or look at different mechanisms they're trying and get some ideas, get some inspiration. You can also look at teams that are doing like robot in 3 days or robot in 24 hours. These are teams that immediately after kickoff are trying to speed run their way to a complete robot that can compete in the season. And these are great opportunities to see what problems they counter on a full scale and get some feedback for what does and doesn't work kind of strategy wise. You can get a lot of great inspiration for what is easier to make versus other things. Some good inspiration can come from this, and it's one of the only places where immediately after kickoff you can get ideas on the scale of a full robot instead of just a specific subsystem. We also encourage your team to do your own prototyping and testing. It's good to look at other teams' results, but also take your own tests, not just because it's important to see what your own experiences with the resources you have and with designing them is, but also because documenting that prototyping is a great thing to put in your engineering portfolio to show how you arrived at your robot design. Part of this, initial time after kickoff, is also making a season timeline, right? There's not a lot of time before your first competition. It's never going to be as much as you want, so you want to be able to manage it effectively. A couple things to keep in mind when creating your season timeline is that things will usually take more time than you think they will. So be generous with the time you can allot, especially hardware, for example, is prone to going over schedule. And like a lot of these can easily go over time. And it's not just robot that you need to schedule in. There's also engineering portfolio needs time, practice needs time, because drive practice can make or break the difference at a lot of first competitions. Also presentation practice to run through your script with like mentors or your parents, as we said below. Having time to have the final polish and refinement on your team for competition is very important, and managing all that as a part of the season timeline. Our graphic shows actually our engineering portfolio being done in parallel, as you can see on the right. This is recommended, especially because engineering portfolio is something that can largely be done outside of meetings. So things that can be done outside of meetings, try to encourage members to work on those, because certain things like fabrication are much more difficult to do outside of that, and you want to manage your time as effectively as possible. Finally, once you get to competition, there's going to be a couple things to keep in mind. First off is that in all of the chaos of getting ready for your first competition, it's likely that you could forget some stuff accidentally. We recommend having a packing list to make sure you have everything critical that you need for your team at the competition. Also, we recommend having replacement, like 3D printed parts for anything super crucial on your robot that's 3D printed. Like if you have 3D printed intake rollers or wheels or something like that could be broken during competitions, please have replacements. You don't want to shut down your entire like robot game for the rest of the day, right? Another thing that some people sometimes forget about, rookies sometimes don't get enough batteries. Please get extra batteries and bring your chargers and your batteries to the events. One battery is not going to last you the entire day, and you want to have a fresh battery for all of your matches so your robot can perform at its best. Scouting is also an element of competitions that's often overlooked by a lot of new teams, but it's extremely important because you can make much better decisions with your alliance partner about what strategies are effective against whoever you're going up against, like whatever opponents you have, and also more informed decisions for playoffs if you get to that level. These are really difficult to make if you don't have actual information on the teams and competitions, and especially at first competitions, there's not a lot available on the web, so you're kind of forced to collect it yourself if you want to have that information at hand. Even something as simple as like getting basic interviews with some of the teams before the event to figure out what their capabilities are is already really important, because you'll know off the bat what your alliance partner can and can't do, and you can formulate like a basic strategy with your drivers for what to do during the match that would be more effective. The final thing is a lot of the fun, right? So a lot of teams will bring 3D printed pins and different giveaways to bring to events. This is a great way to, promote your team to other teams, make a good presence for yourself. You can also decorate your pit and have all kinds of banners and decorations. We at our state like to put up our engineering portfolio in our pit, actually, so other teams can see. You can do this, or you can do different overviews. These are also great to reuse for outreach events, is another note on those. Another great like resource for this is you can look at FRC teams, because a lot of them will have over the top, very creative pit designs. So looking at some of those to get inspiration for your own FTC pit can be an interesting idea. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Good luck. And now for any questions.
That was really informative, guys. It's really impressive, and the way that you have explained it, that and with especially I like the tips that everything that you have said, you also provided with tips. So we as a rookies and other teams that will observe and see our meeting, they could have a lot of information. So thank you so much, guys. Actually, I have a list of the questions since we have asked from another teams as well, like what would you ask from experienced team from USA. So um uh about the portfolio, in the case of timeline, you have shown that you have been preparing it for a couple of weeks, right?
Yes.
So how do you manage it, since even at the last moments of preparation, there could be some things that would be changed, so how do you like manage doing portfolio, since as I know it's one of the most important things in competition?
Well, planning and documentation, as with everything, helps a lot with this. So obviously start with the sections that you know you can fill out, like for example, off-season training and some of your recruiting, your introduction for your team. Not a lot that's not going to change in the week right before competition, right? So you
Mm,
can reliably run that down. Some of the more like stuff that you're tweaking right up against competition, like maybe some of your software, some of your hardware, right? You can
mm,
still write most of that down in like the prototyping and stuff for that,
mm,
and you can just go in and do small edits because usually it's not going to have like a major change right before competition. Another part of this is if you have a CAD model, this helps a lot because you can essentially write about a lot of your hardware off of the CAD model and what the intent is, and then just fill it in with like some of the iterations and changes you made in real life after
mm.
building the thing, right? So that you can get a great basis off of doing planning with things like CAD.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. And the next question is actually it's my personal question. I had a thoughts like you have mentioned numerous times that documentation is our like best friend in this case. So what if we have a several documents? For example, we have one main one during interview, like our portfolio, and what if we like offer to the judges some additional documentation which will contain like statistics, especially from our outreach events? Is it reliable, and can we do it according to the rules, or we should
Uh,
focus mostly on our main portfolio?
According to the rules, you can. I would focus on your portfolio, but at the same time that you're doing these outreach events, like take these statistics and keep them in a folder that you show to the judges. And statistics are really effective and the judges will love it. Just make sure that when you're leaving, you take those statistics with you, since if you
Mm,
leave them with the judges, that's not allowed.
okay.
Another thing that we like recommend doing, something we have done since our FLL days, is you can actually print out posters of some of your information, that you really want to emphasize as visual aids to have your members hold when they're doing their section. Something we discovered, I don't know if this still applies in your area, is that in our area it's a lot cheaper to get yard signs instead of full-size poster boards of information.
Mm.
So that's just a little tip.
Okay. I'll take that. And another question is, what you're doing while having like some conflicts within the team members. For example, at the very beginning, you have mentioned that it's really important to build a clear relationships within the team members. So how do you solve these problems?
Oh, part of it is after a little while, especially when you're like accepting new team members after your team has been established, it gets easier because you kind of have an established like emotional and like communication system within your team already, and you can just have a test meeting with a potential member and see whether or not they fit with your team well, and you can communicate with them well. When you're first starting out as a team, it's a little bit more difficult, which is part of why those like team building activities are so helpful. If there's like a fundamental disconnect between people, it's very difficult to deal with. People have to keep in mind that they need to respect others' ideas and still value their opinions, even if they don't necessarily agree. So that's also part of the decision making framework that we were talking about, is having a way to deal with some of the conflicts that can arise so you can like calmly reach a solution without getting mad at each other. And you need to remember that everybody on the team is working together against a problem, not against each other.
Yeah, the last quote is brilliant, I'd say. So I think for now it's quite all right. So thank you so much for sharing this lore. I'm quite sure that it will bring a lot of like um, positive effect on our viewers, especially from our country, since this season's promised to be really engaging, highly competitive. So thank you so much, guys, for taking this initiative and organizing this meeting. So thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, of
Thank you.
course. Thank you for having us.
So goodbye, guys.
All right,
Bye for
bye.
now.